All right, terrific. Thank you guys so much. Fascinating work. We're gonna roll right on to our next presentation. Just see here. That would be Professor Morgan Frank, who's going to be speaking on job connectivity and the economic resilience of urban labor markets. Professor Frank is an assistant professor in the Department of Informatics and Network Systems and the Department of Information Culture and Data Stewardship in the School of Computing and Information at the University of Pittsburgh. He's also a digital fellow at the Stanford Digital Economy Lab. Welcome, Professor Frank.
Thank you, Christy. So most of us think of cities, especially large cities, as centers for innovation and productivity in the American economy. For example, Ed Glazer wrote this well-cited book, The Triumph of the City, which highlights how people in large cities are better off than their similarly educated peers in other cities. However, Ed also notes that this need not be the case. He says some places will be left behind because not every city has been adept at adapting to the age of information. Recent evidence points to declines in this uplifting urban effect. For example, MIT's David Otter highlights how dense US cities used to support middle-class workers, but now only the most highly skilled workers are urbanizing. Many factors contribute to this transition, but technology appears to be a big one, since small cities face greater impact from automation after combining occupation-level estimates for automation risk with urban employment distributions. So what makes cities resilient and adaptable to disruptions? The well-celebrated demographer, Jane Jacobs, suggests that cities are ecosystems, and as such, diversity is key to their resilience. So are large cities more diverse? It kind of depends on what you mean by diversity. So for example, using information theoretic measures for the diversity of distributions, we found that large cities have less diverse employment distributions over occupations, less diverse skill distributions, and relatively more specialized jobs. So these results appear to go against Jane Jacobs' conclusions. So this kind of begs the question, what's going on here? Why such a different story? We decided that we need to look more closely at skills and how occupation skill requirements shape labor markets. So instead of labor distributions, we have been modeling the US labor market using this multi-layered complex network. Specifically, we believe that mapping the skill similarity between occupations will provide new insights into the adaptability of a labor market when a disruption occurs. Here's what we found. Using occupation skill profiles and employment data from the US Bureau of Labor Statistics, we construct this nation-scale occupation network where circles represent occupations and connections highlight occupation pairs with similar skill requirements. Cities rarely support every occupation in the US, so we model cities using their locally supported occupations and the connections between them. Here you see 3 example cities modeled using the occupation network. Comparing Detroit, Michigan in the middle to Boulder, Colorado on the left, we see that Detroit's network has more nodes, but also has a greater density of connections between those occupations. We capture this connection density with a measure that we call job connectivity, which is analogous to metrics for ecosystem resilience and ecological studies based on the mutualistic interactions between species in that system. As with ecosystems, we found that cities with greater job connectivity within their occupation networks in 2007 experienced lower unemployment rates during the Great Recession. Similarly, after controlling for total employment, cities with greater job connectivity in 2019 experienced lower unemployment during the 2020 COVID recession. Moving forward, we aim to use these insights to better understand individual workers' experience based on their position in their city's occupation network. Specifically, job connectivity aggregates the connections between each occupation and the rest of the occupation network. So are workers of embedded occupations more resilient than their peers in other cities? We are still working on this question, but preliminary analysis points to an embeddedness wage premium. That is, if we focus on a single occupation, workers with higher embeddedness in their city tend to earn higher wages than their peers with the same job title in other cities. This effect holds even after controlling for city fixed effects and occupation-specific characteristics, including educational requirements and local employment share. This idea of connectivity within urban labor markets appears to be a better measure for diversity and a better measure for resilience to labor disruptions than what we had tried initially. And we believe further study of labor complexity will create new insights into economic resilience, adaptable workers, and help us identify the workers who are in need of the most help during the next labor disruption. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Would anyone like to ask a question? I'm kind of curious if you've got sort of, work from home built into any of the changes that you're seeing.
No, not quite yet, but you can imagine using a framework like this to understand whose skill set would allow them to adapt to new employment opportunities if their occupation is not an option for work from home.
Right.
And so the idea here being that skill similarity is a coarse approximation for how much retraining would be required to make a change in your career.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Professor Frank.
Thank you.
All right.